Good morning, everyone. Today is March 19th, 2021. It is 9 a.m. We are here at the Hawaii State Capitol. This is the Committee on Corrections, Military, and Veterans Affairs here in conference room 430. And we have a number of resolutions ahead of us, so we're just going to get going with it. First up, we have HCR 40, HR 32. We're going to be hearing them together. This one is titled Requesting the Department of Public Safety to allow faith pods based on kapu aloha to be established within each correctional center. First up, I believe we have testimony from Rota. Is she available? Not available. Noting that, is there anyone on the Zoom call who would like to jump in to speak on HCR 40, HR 32? Okay, we're going to move along. Next up, we're going to be hearing HCR 35, HR 28. We're going to be hearing them together, titled Strongly Urging the United States Military to Clean Up Munitions and Explosives of Concern in Hawaii under the Military Munitions Response Program. See, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who submitted written testimony. I have nobody highlighted on my testifier list here, but is anybody here on the Zoom call wishing to testify on this matter? I know this one is of significant concern to the introducer and to members who have military munitions in their districts. So, okay, we're going to move along. Now hearing together HCR 155, HR 131, urging the United States Department of Defense Missile Defense Agency to resist sighting the proposed Homeland Defense radar Hawaii within the state. Let's see. Just a moment. I'm double checking the testifier list with the names that I see on the Zoom here. Is David Mullenix here? Jason Ching? Chung? Yes. Mr. Chung, you have the floor.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the community, thank you. I'm Jason Chung. I'm the Vice President of the Military Affairs Council, Chamber of Commerce, Hawaii. Stand on our testimony, we oppose Bill 155. Just as a matter of background, I served 30 years as a military intelligence officer, the last 6 in senior executive positions here within the Indo-PACOM AOR. 4 in the Republic of Korea. I was the commander of the organization that did most of the intelligence collection and analysis on potential threats within the region. So primarily the Republic, North Korea, as well as China and Russia. And then my last 2 years, I spent here as a senior intelligence officer for U.S. Army Pacific, looking again at those different threats, North Korea, China, Russia, as well as violent extremist organizations, as opposed to United States government and Hawaii specifically. And the reason I give you that background is when I say that this bill mischaracterizes a number of things, it takes things out of context. It's not just based upon something I've read. This is something that I've studied, and it was my profession for over 30 plus years. And I just want to highlight a few things that the bill states. This is not wasteful spending. I mean, it's required as part of our national defense and defense of Hawaii. There's a misperception that Hawaii is more of a threat because the radar is here. That is completely inaccurate. Hawaii is a threat, or Hawaii is a target because of its geographic critical location as really the gateway into the West, as well as the gateway into the Indo-Pacific, which is the most consequential region within today's world from an economic or geopolitical standpoint. So regardless of the radar, where it's sited, Hawaii would still be at significant risk by competitors and adversaries. It also states that the advances of our competitors and adversaries in the region basically make the Homeland Defense radar obsolete. That is inaccurate. It is why a layered defense is required. And so that incorporates things that are in the Republic of Korea, Japan, Alaska, Australia, the SBX, Guam, in Hawaii, and the West Coast is required to be able to address all those different potential threats that are out there today, as well as things that are going to be evolving into the future. If there's any questions, I stand prepared to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chung. Let's see. I believe we have Ms. Melody Aduha here testifying on behalf of the Democratic Party.
Good morning.
Democratic Party of Hawaii Environmental Caucus. Apologies. You have the floor.
Good morning. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Acting Chair Ganadin and members of the committee. My name is Melody Aduha. I am a co-chair of the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii, and we stand in strong support of Resolution HCR 155 and HR 131. Now, at this time, I would like to quote out of the Democratic Party state platform, which indicates on pages 17 and 22 that the party, we support the protection of our INA against destruction by corporate, government, or military usage and expect full restoration and reparation of environmental damage. It goes on to say that we support the protection of our INA against destruction by military use. And it also says we support the best training of our military. However, we urge protection of our INA from long-term degradation and prevention of harm to our cultural and community assets. I'd like this committee to address your attention to the 6th paragraph on the resolution where it says, whereas there are serious environmental, social, and cultural concerns associated with HDRH, including electromagnetic emissions, toxic waste disposal, a diesel power plant requiring 150,000 gallons of fuel storage, clearing up of 160 acres, impacting cultural sites and environment, and the plan for a contamination shelter in case of chemical fallout, all of which compound the frustration of Hawaii residents over the military's unsatisfactory stewardship of Pohakuloa, Oahu's endangered aquifer below the Red Hill fuel tanks, and the Pearl Harbor Superfund sites as example of military-caused environmental degradation. At this point, I'd like to point to page 21 of the Democratic Party platform, which states that the armed forces in Hawaii and their families sacrifice to serve and defend our country and to help us in time of need. And we encourage the continuation of efforts to coordinate military activities with affected communities. The Environmental Caucus has brought this resolution to the attention of the legislature based on the community concern set forth by those on the island of Kauai as well as Oahu. I'm from Kahalu'u, so I'm not very far from the Kahuku training area, which is the first site in which they plan to, or the first proposed site for this radar. Secondly, the Environmental Caucus opposed the wasting of tax money and absolute weapon systems. The Homeland Defense Radar will not defend against newer generations of ballistic, hypersonic, and low-flying cruise missiles capable of Mach 4 speed that are being developed by China, Russia, and the United States. These missiles are capable of evading ground-based radar detection by overflying air defense sensors and flying below ballistic missile sensors, rendering the HDRH obsolete. Recognizing this reality that the radar will not be useful against these weapons, the Missile Defense Agency of the Department of Defense defunded the Homeland Defense Radar Hawaii in the 2020 Defense Authorization Act. Instead, the Missile Defense Agency funded a next-generation space-based global sensor system and upgraded the sea-based X-band radar golf ball for $47 million. in place of the already obsolete ADR-H. The upgrade of the X-band radar is 5 times cheaper than even the $255 million that has been allotted for the environmental impact statement for the ultimate site of the radar. And I am aware that Congress has already put in its budget $133 million. And apparently that's going to go through the ongoing development of the environmental impact statement, in which the deadline now for the scoping part of this EIS, excuse me, is April 12th. Okay, so.
Thank you so much, Ms.
You know-
Could you conclude?
Can I just finish up real quick?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in an investment of $1.9 billion in diplomatic, nonviolent initiatives in China, North Korea, and Iran will go much further than towards resolving U.S. national security issues that the construction of the Homeland Defense Radar Hawaii and the increasing military confrontation with China and the Western Pacific. Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify, and please support this resolution. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. I see here on the Zoom, Joe Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, and aloha committee members. I'm a longtime resident of a North Shore Oahu neighborhood known by some as Waiale'e and others as Velzy Land. Oh, I've been asked to start my video, sorry. But I'm going to read from my testimony because I submitted it a bit late. You may not have seen it. I'm also a member of the Ko'olau Wailua Alliance, a grassroots network of residents and community groups across Oahu's north and windward shores, uniting to ensure more just and sustainable realities for current and future generations. I'm writing in strong support of these resolutions today and asking for your support as well. While there are many compelling scientific and technological arguments against this project, I feel that additional concerns must also be addressed. First and foremost for me are concerns about locating a toxic military industrial facility near densely populated residential communities, posing significant threats to people, wildlife, historic and sacred cultural sites, and sensitive agricultural wetlands and coastal zones. From Kaho'olawe to Makua Valley, Pohakaloa to Pearl Harbor, the well-documented military desecration, poisoning, and pollution of Hawaii has been happening for decades. The grave threat to human health and the environment posed by the US Navy's troubled Red Hill fuel storage tanks is just the most recent example. A military installation that poses similar threats, such as the so-called Homeland Defense Radar Hawaii, does not belong near any population centers or sensitive environmental or cultural areas in our region now or ever. Concern about these very real threats was heightened to the extreme by the floodwaters raging through our communities, properties, and homes during last week's storms. Imagine the compounded difficulties if such waters contain not only mud, sewage, and other debris, but also fuel, hazardous waste, and other toxic contaminants associated with these insecure military industrial facilities. Secondarily for me, I have concerns about the ways in which funding for this project was reinserted in the recently passed federal spending bill, even after Pentagon officials and scientific experts said that it was obsolete and ineffective. This irresponsible action was taken by some of our own congressional delegation without engaging or consulting residents in our region before deciding to put us in harm's way. It makes it appear as though communities like ours are seen as dispensable, just minor obstacles in the way of the tried and true political game of using funding for military projects in Hawaii as an economic development strategy disguised under the cloak of national security. While these are indeed hard economic times and financial needs in our communities are great, grassroots leaders across Hawaii, particularly in the Native Hawaiian community, have worked hard in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic to envision and propose alternatives for a more sustainable economic future, one less dependent on the harmful and extractive military and tourist industries. The often overwhelming geopolitical forces surrounding these issues seem designed to confuse and to make us feel powerless. This resolution gives us a chance to have our voices heard And it's my hope that members of this committee and all of our elected representatives will join the growing grassroots network of individuals and community organizations across the islands in our opposition to Homeland Defense Radar Hawaii. Thank you for your consideration. If you're interested, I would be happy to share a mention of those who have signed on to this growing alliance coming to your community soon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. Is there anyone else here on the Zoom who wishes to testify on HCR 155 or HR 131, which we're hearing together?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes. Oh.
Major General Varislam.
Apologies, I didn't see you right here, right in front of me.
No, is there someone that wanted to go before me?
No, you have the floor.
Okay, well, aloha mai kako, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Mahalo nui loa for allowing me the opportunity to testify. I am the mobilization assistant to Admiral Davidson, the commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, and I've been here 5.5 years. I'm from here. I am of Native Hawaiian ancestry. I've served in the military 34 years, military intelligence as well. Work very closely with the Missile Defense Agency, Vice Admiral Hill, whose mother is also from Wahiawa. I stand on my testimony in opposition to this resolution. As you consider this resolution, I just would urge and put forth that you both consider the critical protection extended for our islands, our home, by the Homeland Defense Radar, and the ongoing and systematic due process which verifies the safety and environmental standards. And we at Indo-Pacific Command, have worked closely with the Missile Defense Agency, as I mentioned, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the state and local governments and local communities in the development and design and siting efforts related to the proposed Homeland Defense Radar. Through our analysis and studies, and again, working closely with MDA, we believe the proposed HDRH is crucial to the defense of Hawaii and our nation. Homeland Defense Radar Hawaii system will directly contribute to the U.S. ballistic missile defense system against any intercontinental ballistic missile threats from North Korea targeting Hawaii. North Korea continues to develop and showcase its ICBM range systems to threaten all of the United States. We know that the threat extends to Hawaii both as a significant population center and as a military command and logistics hub. HDRH would not increase the existing threat to Hawaii. Hawaii is already at risk. Mr. Ricky Ellison of the Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance echoed this assessment in his report on 16 March by the Star Advertiser. Instead, by improving defensive capabilities, we increase deterrence for an adversary that might otherwise threaten or attack. There's no substitute for building a radar on Hawaii. A highly capable and persistent land-based radar offers a range of benefits that space-based sensors and sea-based platforms do not. Along with the Missile Defense Agency, we're committed to leveraging all the available and capable sensors to an integrated architecture. So really an integrated architecture to detect and destroy all varieties of current and future missile threats to the homeland from rogue states such as North Korea. The Missile Defense Agency is completing a long-range discriminating radar in Clear Alaska, which offers advanced protection should a missile approach towards the continental United States or Alaska. The HDRH extends the advanced protection to Hawaii by protecting the more southerly track to Hawaii that cannot be seen by the Alaska radar. There's also been an argument that the technology associated with HDRH is outdated, and that could not be farther from the truth. In fact, it is a state-of-the-art solid-state radar, drawing from and improving on already in position Alaska radar design. This advanced solid-state radar is the larger version of the already same technology the Navy is pursuing for their ships and cannot be matched from space-based or mobile technology. It is truly the best sensor technology available to address the threat today. It is a game changer. We defer to MDA, of course, on the final cost estimates, a significant amount of which is already spent or obligated by this time. While HDRH technology is expensive, it's not disproportionate to the comparable military systems. The system is less expensive than the Alaska radar, using only one radar face Vice 2 in Alaska, and costs proportionately the same as a modern destroyer ship. We believe this represents a good investment and a military obligation to ensure all of Hawaii is defended from the threats to the same degree as all the other 49 states. We're committed to working with MDA and the broader Department of Defense and the community to ensure the HDRH is designed and tested and built in the most cost-effective and safest manner. You know, we are committed to doing this the right way, respecting the environment and cultural concerns and being good stewards of the land, air, water resources, and human environment in which we operate. In fact, we are legally bound to do so. Established processes, including the environmental studies, impact statements, cultural impacts, and training modifications are designed to address concerns and ensure safety. We understand and expect any project of this magnitude and importance to raise these concerns, understandably. And we're committed to open and transparent processes within these established governing structures. We continue to work again with MDA, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps to ensure the development and design of the HDRH in the on US military property is consistent with and respectful of all levels of regulatory requirements to ensure the long-term viability and success of the project. Thank you so much for allowing me to testify, and I'm open to any questions that you may have, sir. Mahalo.
Thank you so much.
Aloha. Yeah, my Dave Mullinex here.
Oh,
I was going to testify.
Here to testify on HCR 155.
Yes.
131. You're on the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, my camera's not working. But quickly, I just want to counter what was just said by the military liaison. That yeah, the military always talks about how they are concerned, about the environment and they're going to protect it and take care of all those things. Yet Hawaii is full of toxic chemicals and sites that are contaminated by the U.S. military. Red Hill, Pearl Harbor, anyway, Ko'olawe. They do not clean up, and they do not. Their number one thing is to make sure that they get their next weapon system. We've heard from the military over and over again how this is the most important, the most vital piece of equipment we need to protect ourselves. Yet we have hundreds and hundreds of weapons that they have been funded by our U.S. tax dollars that were never used or were obsolete by the time they got off the production line. There are actually places where they have huge amounts of these weapons just standing there that were useless. This system is not for Hawaii. It's not for the people of Hawaii. The people of Hawaii don't need it or want it. This bogus threat that Korea would attack us is absolutely absurd. They may have 1 or 2 missiles that may or may not get to Hawaii, but they know that should they ever fire a missile at the United States, their nation would be obliterated. Their military knows that. There's no way that they'd ever allow their leader to fire a missile at Hawaii because they know that their nation will be wiped off the face of the earth. So this is an absurd threat. It's bogus. And so we stand in support of this resolution, and we oppose this radar. I'm Dave Mullinex. I'm with our Revolution Hawaii and representing our 7,000 members and supporters statewide. Thank you very much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry about the camera.
Is there anyone else on the Zoom here to testify on HCR 155, HR 131? Hearing that, members, any questions on HCR 155, HR 131? Representative Bronco.
For Major General Baris Lum.
Yes, sir.
Major General, is the development of this radar done in coordination with any of our allies in the region?
They are. Of course, Japan is a critical part of our layered defense. So when you think about it, it doesn't sit alone, sort of like the SBX is one part of it. So that is correct that investment is important, but it's part, if you think about it, a network, if you look behind me on this vast Pacific Ocean. So starting with Japan, Guam being part of it, Hawaii, Alaska, this network that provides you early warning and sensor. And it also is an open architecture. So it's not just, the design will be open architecture. It's not just, the future is beyond North Korea, right? Ability to have this architecture so you can see 360 of all emerging threats.
Is this a commitment that is actually in treaties? For example, we have to commit to a certain amount for NATO defense spending. Is this a requirement of any treaty?
No, this is not.
Could you please just give a brief description of China's encroachment into the Pacific, please?
Absolutely. So right now, China continues to advance and claim islands or sea features within the South China Sea where trillions of dollars of our trade goes through. And they continue to develop it at an exponential rate, their military capabilities to, of course, push us out of the region, saying, as Xi once said, that Asia is for Asians and not seeing us as a Pacific nation. Being Keiki Oka Aina from this place and my ancestors from this place, I believe in its protection. And to say that we are not part of this Pacific is very important. But what they are doing is really pushing us, threatening our ability to have free and open Indo-Pacific, free commerce through the South China Sea, where of course our undersea cables, of course, go through the South China Sea, coming here to Hawaii, to the United States. So our economic viability and interests, of course, rely on our ability to defend forward west of the international date line. And Hawaii is a critical hub for that. Here in Hawaii, we have the Indo-Pacific Command that command and controls all US forces from the California coast to the west coast of India. And as we've seen throughout time, last year was the 75th end of the 75th commemoration of the end of World War II. The geographic location of Hawaii makes us a strategic point. And really, being the Pacific homeland, we need to be able to defend here and defend forward.
With China's encroachment into the Pacific, they've already constructed 7 artificial islands, and the US Navy is going close within a 12-mile range of these islands. Would this radar system in any way be supporting our naval vessels that are sailing through in the South Pacific? Excuse me.
Well, it provides, this particular radar would be specifically for Hawaii, but in concert with these other radar would provide a huge umbrella when it's networked across our entire blue continent. So throughout the whole region.
And could you make the connection between how this radar and what we're doing in the Pacific can also support our colleagues at the Department of State and our diplomats who are working throughout the region?
Absolutely. It shows, when you think about deterrence, we certainly want to be able to say that we are going to invest in the protection of our people and of this state, of this place, by investing in its protection, in its defense. And this radar would provide us that ability. It's a message, and in Guam as well, it's a message to our adversaries who would like to do harm, who think that we're expendable, just like the miscalculation that happened on December 7th, 1941, thinking that a territory, we would not go to war over a territory. And, when you look at their thinking on how our adversaries thinking on how we view Hawaii, how we view Guam, by not investing in our deterrence, by not investing in a structure that would protect and deter them, we're sending a message to them that we're not willing to defend this place.
And last question, could you let me know which allies in the region are in support of this radar system?
Definitely Japan is our number one support. Of course, we have 5 bilateral treaties, and Australia and Japan are key bilateral treaties in this region.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Representative Tarnas.
Thank you. Also for Major General Verislam, I wanted to ask and give you the opportunity to respond to a number of the comments that came in from those who are supporting the resolution. They're saying that this would not defend against the newer generations of ballistic, hypersonic, and low-flying cruise missiles capable of Mach 4 speed being developed by China and Russia. Could you please educate the committee on this matter?
Absolutely. Thank you, Representative. So when we look at the architecture of the design, the software design. So while the fixed system is created in such a way that it's going to be designed as an open architecture, and they're going through testing right now. So a lot of that money is the testing and design. That $133 million is to make sure that the architecture is open to the latest hypersonic, maneuverable ballistic missiles that could come our way from a variety of threats beyond North Korea. So that kind of investment and that kind of structure and investment would allow us to continue to expand and change without changing the hardware piece, but the software piece.
Thank you. And one more question, Chair. The process to go forward to site such a facility here would require the federal environmental impact statement. And so could you provide for the committee a brief description of the public participation and the public review that environmental impact statement would require?
Absolutely. It does require, it is a long, lengthy process, and it requires the public scoping. So just this month, informing all of the key stakeholders, particularly looking at Kauai. The second siting location on Kauai is on the Pacific Missile Range facility, which is already on federal property outside of community areas. But the public scoping, getting the support of Kauai community, already facing out towards where we already do missile testing, is one of the sites, for example. And that will require extensive environmental impact statement, looking at cultural impact to people, communities. And it is a long, lengthy process. And the public scoping piece allows public comment. And, we look at that and we can adjust. In fact, that has caused us to adjust significantly. Because if you remember, the original site was Kua'okala Ridge, right? I mean, if you remember that. So that community scoping already changed that. And, being from Hawaii, speaking to folks in the Missile Defense Agency on how important that ridge is and how critical it is, it took it off of the EIS, took another one off of the EIS from the North Shore. So really, sometimes we have to look at multiple sites to go through the process. That doesn't mean that the North Shore, you know what I mean? We have to look at multiple sites because that's part of the formality of it. But as was brought up, those issues and concerns, those will be noted in the EIS. And clearly, if that's not where it needs to go, then the other site, we look at PMRF. So, but we need to look at both sites. Those are the two sites that are still on the EIS evaluation. But noted, those kind of concerns need to be noted in that EIS about what it will, the community on the North Shore, just like the flooding, all that. I completely concur that those need to go on that environmental impact statement.
Thank you, Major General. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair has a couple quick questions. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Representative Markell.
Vice Chair. For Major General, stay on, please, because I am the representative from the district that is PMRF. No matter how much we want to protect our culture or our environment, it means nothing if we are open to missile attacks. So that's where I'm coming from. I think the defense of our nation and of our state is of utmost importance here. And I'm torn because I have received a lot of negative comments from my community about having something like this on Kauai. And I understand that PMRF is in an area which is like prime. There are really no residents anywhere around. And it seems to be like a really good location. And because of that, I support it. I really do. And people may not like me because of that. But like I said, I feel like the defense of our state and nation is more important. So is China's inventory, military inventory, how is it compared to the United States?
Thank you, Representative, for that, and thank you for your support. And I, like you, being from this place, I feel a personal responsibility to make sure we get this right. We definitely, the safety and security of the people, the water, the place, the culture, and the culture being of Native Hawaiian ancestry is very important to me. I would not dismiss that for a reason, but we got to look at this in a way that we can put this in place in a way that is respectful. And yes, there were mistakes in the past, and I acknowledge that, and we have learned from that. And I can assure you that I've made sure that everybody knows that we must do this in a way. So we are having dialogues, of course, with PMRF on Red Hill, putting billions, $1.4 million in environmental rehabilitation. And there could be more, right? But we are working towards doing all that because, this was a major ordinance site, even on the Big Island, and Kaho'olawe. So no question about that. And we need to look at that. But going forward, when we look at China, they are rapidly expanding every single day. Their ballistic missiles, they were not part, of course, of any treaty, right? So the distances of their intercontinental ballistic missiles and their inventory, there's no treaty. There's nothing to stop them, and they continue to build. Their exercises and their presence in the region is very clear that they don't see Hawaii and Guam the same way we do. My ancestors are from this place. I am American. They in some respects have seen us as potentially expendable. And I'm not saying that out of fear, but we didn't see that coming 75 years ago or 78 years ago, December 7, 1941. Definitely the security and safety of the people. We can't forget what happened back then when there was a miscalculation by the Empire of Japan because it didn't show that we would protect and defend this place. And I think we need to, and that means a lot to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Apologies again for not looking up. Representative Branco has another question.
Sorry, for Major General, we do have issues here, as you had mentioned, of military infrastructure going in and then degrading and it not being taken down properly. What is in the plan to ensure that happens, the land is taken care of, and the military infrastructure will be taken down properly? Is there a budget for that? Is there a plan for that?
Absolutely, Representative. Thank you for that question. We as I had shown, there is budget on the whole environmental. In fact, OSD, and we're participating now with the Office of Secretary of Defense on a whole section on environmental stewardship funding, and it is multi-million-dollar investment in funding. So all of the services have this money. The Navy, particularly with Red Hill, and partnerships with the University of Hawaii to look at ways that we can invest some of this money to get our own local university to look at innovative ways that we can ensure the protection of the safe water that is there under Red Hill. Also, the investment in training folks to clean up UXO and Waikoloa on the Big Island. Looking at investing in monies for Pohakuloa training area and preserving the flora and fauna and cultural sites. So for the past year, we've been having weekly dialogues and now monthly dialogues with the Native Hawaiian community on Hawaii Island to look at ways in which that we can work together for stewardship of the cultural and plants, animals there, and how can we work together. And this process has proved, it's Thursday night, 2 hours, key Native Hawaiian stakeholders. And I think that kind of process and investment going forward is I think a standard that we should do. We can, I think, if we bring all the right people to the table with a common understanding, but we started out with an understanding of culture and place. What does Pohakuloa mean to me? Mean to me as Native Hawaiian, means to me as someone who believes in the protection and defense of the people of Hawaii. How can those two come together in a way that's respectful of one another? So that money is being invested. Also, we have several $1 million that was invested in 1 million seeds of Native Hawaiian plants at Schofield Barracks. And if you look at Schofield, the training area, the high hazard impact training area in Wahiawa, it's actually shrunk because during World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, it was massive, right? Everybody was pushing the military through here, and it was quite wide if you look at the Waianae range. And it is now shrunk to a small location with cultural sites preserved that are adjacent to it. Now, we haven't done it across the board because, again, this was a major, site, World War II, like Guam and other CNMI, Saipan in the Pacific. Those will take some time, but going forward, we need to learn from those lessons of the past and make sure that we don't do it again. But the monies are there to invest, and also hiring local companies is ideal as best we can. And while we can't commit to that, there are other elements that are trying to work together to make sure that we have the capacity to help and assist to do that.
Members, are there any other questions? Just a brief question to Ms. Baraslam. Will this missile defense system, will this expand the footprint of any current facilities?
No, well, no, it will sit on the already federal if PMRF is selected, and I cannot presuppose one or the other. So if that is the site, it will sit on already existing federal property. So it really wouldn't, in terms of the number of people as well. But in terms of local hire, 75%, and I think Representative Morikawa would see that the local community opportunities for employment, for jobs, for high tech, rather than, diversifying our local economy, there is definitely an opportunity for that.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? All right, we're going to move right along.
Chair Gannon, can I ask just a quick question, please? This is Joe Wilson of the Ko'olau Wailua Alliance.
We ordinarily ask the questions right now. Is there anything that you...
Well, I appreciate that you're having a kind of broad discussion on many of these issues, but my question is, a member of our alliance submitted testimony. She happens to be a scientific expert and could help kind of broaden the context and understanding on all of the questions that are being raised. She's online right now, but she was not invited to speak.
Is there someone else here on the Zoom who signed up?
No, she wasn't even invited onto the Zoom. So I guess I'm just trying to see, is this a predetermined outcome? Because the conversation feels very incomplete to me. And the military perspective is well known and has been given quite a lot of space, but the community perspective has not. And I just want to raise it as a concern.
I hear your concern, Mr. Mullenix, and we appreciate your...
This is Mr. Wilson, not Mr. Mullenix.
Yes,
Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, we're gonna be moving along. I'm hearing now HCR 151, HR 127, titled Urging the Department of Public Safety to increase its investment in comprehensive offender reentry training programs for individuals exiting correctional facilities. We have here, I see on the Zoom, Director of Public Safety, Max Otani.
This is Deputy Director for Corrections, Tommy Johnson. Mr. Otani, Director Otani, apologize he didn't be here. It was a scheduling conflict. We'll stand on our written testimony in support of this measure, and I'll stand by for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Also to testify, I saw her earlier. I'm wondering if she's around. Mandy Fernandez of the ACLU of Hawaii.
Hi, good morning. Morning, Chair Ono, Vice Chair Ganadin, members of the committee. Mandy Fernandez on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii. Thank you so much for hearing this resolution. It recognizes how critical reentry services are to improving public safety and successfully reuniting people with their families and communities after a period of incarceration. Those leaving jails and prisons face incredible barriers, as we know, but these barriers have only been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Reentry services help people navigate and overcome many of these barriers. Prioritizing reentry planning is not only humane, but it makes our community safer. We know that 95% of people incarcerated in state prisons will eventually be released, and reentry programs that help secure jobs, treatment, housing, and education have proven effective in facilitating the successful transition of formerly incarcerated people out of jail or prison and back to their families and communities, have shown to reduce recidivism. Despite this, the Public Safety Department has recently proposed a $500,000 cut in reentry contracts, while simultaneously proposing increases in other areas. And we know that the department is already failing to comply with its reentry obligations, such as a 2017 law requiring the department to provide civil IDs to those leaving correctional facilities. These documents are necessary to secure housing and employment, to enroll in many benefit programs, and to fill prescriptions for medication. Between October 2018 and November 2019, roughly half of those leaving jails and prisons statewide still left without state identification cards. This resolution is necessary to reaffirm the state's commitment to providing reentry support and to urge the department to prioritize reentry, including maintaining current reentry funding levels, but ultimately looking for opportunities to increase investment in reentry. For these reasons and many others, we urge the committee to support this resolution. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fernandez. Is there anyone else here on the Zoom hoping to testify on HCR 151, HR 127? Members, any questions? Representative Kobayashi.
For Department Public Safety, is it correct that the prior testimony was that many of the people, 46%, who leave prison do not have state ID? Is that correct?
I'm not sure, Deputy Director Tommy Johnson. I'm not sure the exact number, but we have an MOU, an MOA in place now with Department of Transportation, and are working on an MOA now with the City Department of Customer Service to issue ID cards, state ID cards to inmates. Those things need to be in place first before we can start issuing ID cards. The percentage of inmates leaving without identification, I really couldn't tell you. Some of them do have driver's licenses or state IDs. Some of them do expire while they're incarcerated and to be renewed. But we are working on that as indicated in our testimony. But I also like to clarify one point. The $500,000 reduction was based on our need to reduce the budget based on the guidance we received from the administration and BNF. Finance has now restored that $500,000 back into the reentry budget. So we will be using those funds for reentry efforts.
So, I'm sorry. Are there people who leave the prison without identification?
There are some that leave the prison without a valid state ID, yes.
I'm sorry. Beyond state ID, do people and how many people leave the prison without proper ID, whether it's a state ID or a driver's license?
I don't have those figures here, to be honest with you.
Oh. Is it a goal of the department to provide identification for all of those who leave prison?
Yes, for those that need it, yes, it is our goal.
What do you mean for those who need it?
Some do not because they may already have a valid state ID card or driver's license that didn't expire, because we have people that come in for short-term misdemeanors and jail sentences, and others that go to prison for those lengths of time. Those are the ones that we concentrate our efforts on to need a birth certificate with the Department of Health, a state ID card. We try to help with them, work with the Social Security Administration for a new Social Security card. We try to connect them into services with DHS, those kind of things.
So with the $500,000 restored, would you be able to provide proper ID to everyone leaving?
I don't know that we'd be able to provide it to everyone initially, but we will certainly, that will be our goal. Again, we've got the MOA in place with the Department of Transportation. We bought the equipment for the ID cards we need. The $500,000 would help us not just with that, but other reentry efforts as well.
Okay, sounds a little wishy-washy. Thank you.
To the Department of Public Safety, there is a law on the books passed just a few years ago mandating that the department issue a form of identification to certain outgoing inmates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so so this resolution would just simply urge the department to comply with existing law. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Members, any other questions? Okay, gonna move on. Hearing now, HCR 171, recognizing and supporting the use of Native culture-based rehabilitation in the state's correctional system. Again, we have the Department of Public Safety.
Okay, we will, Tommy Johnson again, Deputy Director of Corrections. Again, Director Otani is, as a previous engagement, he apologized, he can't be here. We support this resolution and we've done a number of things, but we would require the assistance of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and other Indigenous Hawaiian groups who specialize in this type of thing, maintaining cultural-based rehabilitative programs to help us so we take the right path. Like we've instituted things like the Makahiki ceremony and other things in the prisons, but we would partner with OHA or other Indigenous groups to make sure we do this correctly, and we support this effort.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have David Kalila-Copper of the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation.
Thank you, Acting Chair Ganadin. I am the Litigation Director of Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, and we too strongly support this resolution. There is no doubt that opportunities to practice one's faith while incarcerated are beneficial, and prisoners of many faiths are given those opportunities. And simply because one's faith is indigenous or part of a holistic culture does not make it less of a fundamental right or a beneficial practice. And we have seen firsthand the lasting effects of the opportunity to engage in Native Hawaiian traditional customary practices while incarcerated. Our office has been involved in multiple lawsuits to seek the opportunity for prisoners to engage in these practices, including the Davis versus Abercrombie case, among others. And as a part of that case, I was able to visit Saguaro and meet with the men incarcerated there. You know, you really, for anyone who's been there, you really cannot help but feel their isolation. They are literally not only thousands of miles away, but also middle of nowhere in Arizona, as if they are forgotten. And our clients have made clear the importance of these kind of programs in grounding themselves in their cultural identity. And again, especially for those who are sent away to the mainland to serve their time. And we really think this is the minimum that could be done for Pa'ahau. And so, you know, we applaud the aim and goal of this resolution. And we do believe if the actions urged by this resolution were adopted, it would really go a long way to accomplish what our office has aimed to do, you know, with our services and our practice. And it would be a recognition of the importance and value of Native Hawaiian traditional customary practices. So mahalo for this resolution and mahalo for your time today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Copper. Is anyone else here on the Zoom looking to testify on this resolution?
Yes, hello, it's Dave Molnix. May I testify?
Mr. Molnix, did you?
No, I didn't know about this legislation. I'm the former president of the American Indian Center here in Hawaii, and we use cultural practices for drug and alcohol abuse.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Molnix. I didn't see you on the testifying list, but I really do thank you for your service to community and for your advocacy. Hold on just a moment. Members, are there any questions to the testifier? No. I've got a brief question to Mr. Copper. Pursuant to the Davis versus Abercrombie decision, which the Native Hawaiian Legal Corp took on several years ago, how is faith defined under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution in the practice of individuals' capacity to practice their faith in incarceration?
Well, it definitely includes the practices we're discussing here. There's, you know, simply because something is indigenous or part of a quote culture does not make it, you know, any less spiritual, so long as it's belief. And of course, our courts look at the subjective beliefs of the practitioners. And, you know, Davis it did end in a settlement, but there were rulings in the case. And I would say the settlement itself really does go at least towards valid, that a recognition that these practices are legally valid and, could be enforceable under the Constitution.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Okay, moving on to our last resolution, HCR 172, requesting the Department of Accounting and General Services, Department of Budget and Finance, and Department of Public Safety to testify on any legislation that would potentially increase overcrowding conditions at Hawaii's correctional facilities. I see here, again, Mr. Johnson from the Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Chair. This is Tommy Johnson again, Deputy Corrections. We submitted testimony supporting the intent of this measure. The testimony is fairly lengthy. It's 6 pages, so I'll stand our written testimony and I'll be available to answer questions.
Thank you so much. I see also Mr. Kurt Otaguro of the Department of Accounting and General Services.
Hi, good morning, Vice Chair Ganadin, members of the committee. Kurt Otaguro, State Comptroller. Department of Accounting and General Services defers to and is in full support of public safety's testimony on this resolution. And we will continue to support public safety with their endeavors to uphold their mission in justice and public safety. And so we'll be available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other individuals of the 4 who submitted testimony here on the Zoom hoping to testify before the committee? Okay, thank you so much. Members, if it's okay, we're gonna just go right into decision making. Cool.
Chair, this is Melody Aduha.
Ms. Aduha.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the video to come back on, but I guess I'm unable to do that. I would like to make reference to HCR 35. That was the second resolution on your list, and there were no testifiers. And there was a request for anyone on the Zoom who would like to testify. And at this time, if with this acting chair's indulgence, I would like to testify on this resolution in support.
I'm granting the indulgence. We will be rehearing HCR 35, HCR 28. We are kind of short for time, so hoping you can keep it fairly brief.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, I would like to say that the Democratic Party and the Environmental Caucus specifically is in support of HCR 35, HR 28. I would like this committee to note that there are 115 military installations with hazardous sites in the state of Hawaii, with a total past and future cleanup costs of $2.77 billion. And of the 115 military installations, 43 are determined to be by the Department of Defense to be high and medium hazardous risk installations. Chair, I do have a list. If I could start with those that are of high risk that I believe should be subject.
Thank you for your testimony, and we are very appreciative of you jumping back in. We're going to go right into decision making now.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much.
Mahalo.
All right, members, let's take it from the top. First up, we have HCR 40, HR 33. We're going to be hearing together, requesting the Department of Public Safety to allow faith pods based on Kapua Aloha to be established in each correctional center. We did not hear any testimony directly on the matter via the Zoom. However, the Department of Public Safety did testify in support via written testimony, so hoping to pass as is.
Okay.
Members, questions? Any comments?
Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Branco.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Hong.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Tarnas.
Aye.
And Representative McDermott.
Yes.
Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thanks so much, members.
I'm sorry, that's for HCR 40 and HR 32.
Yes, we are hearing them together. Next up, we have HCR 35, HCR 28, strongly urging the United States military to clean up munitions and explosives of concern in Hawaii under the Military Munitions Response Program. Members, we heard significant testimony from for the resolution just after this one regarding cleanup of munitions across the archipelago. We also heard late from the Democratic Party of Hawaii Environmental Caucus. This is of great concern to the member who submitted it. My suggestion is to pass as is. It's just a suggestion to clean up primarily bellows. Members, any questions?
Okay. Members are voting on HCR 35 and HR 28. Vice Chair's recommendations to pass as is. Noting all members present, are there any reservations or no's? Reservations, McDermott's. Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Members, next up, HCR 155, HR 131. My thanks to the members in allowing me to hold this committee hearing and to all those who testified. Title of this one is urging the United States Department of Defense Military Missile Defense Agency to resist citing the proposed Homeland Defense Radar Hawaii within the state, noting the discussion that the representative from Kauai had with the Department of Defense and the fact that this will not be expanding the footprint of military sites throughout the state of Hawaii. Also, the important testimony and work of peace activists who testified before us, who have been advocating for the cleanup of sites from Pohakuloa, Kaho'olawe, all throughout the islands, and their advocacy, and they're bringing these kinds of things to the attention of the legislature and to the federal government is absolutely necessary. And I think that that was accomplished today, and that will continue to be accomplished through prospective environmental impact statements, cultural impact statements. I don't see the necessity for this resolution at this time. My suggestion is to defer the resolution. Hearing HCR 151, HR 127, urging the Department of Public Safety to increase its investment in comprehensive offender reentry training programs for individuals exiting correctional facilities. Noting the testimony of the Department of Public Safety, Mr. Johnson, and the fact that this is already mandated by law. This is just hopefully gonna get the department to help people get forms of identification so that when they get out, they can be participating members of society. You also need a form of identification to get your stimulus check. So people who are exiting can get $1,400 if they walk into a broker. So this is pretty important stuff. Can't get on the bus without an ID. Can't do a lot of things without an ID. So my suggestion is to pass as is. Members, any questions?
Great. Members voting on HCR 151, HR 127. Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Noting all members present, any reservations or no's? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you so much. Next up, HCR 171, recognizing and supporting the use of Native culture-based rehabilitation in the state's correctional system. Members, we heard how important the practicing of faith, and especially Native-based cultural faith, is important to individuals' rehabilitation. If you read the resolution, it cites, it discusses a movie called Out of State. It won Best Picture at the Hawaii International Film Festival just a few years ago, and it follows individuals and their ability to reintegrate to their families and to society using their own identity. I have a suggestion to do an HD1 on page 1, line 24, noting the testimony of the Native Hawaiian Legal Corp. I would like to cite the Davis versus Abercrombie case, sub number 11-00144, in noting that it is legal for individuals to practice their faith in correctional facilities under the oversight of the Department of Public Safety. Members, any questions?
Members are voting on HCR 171. Vice Chair's recommendations to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, any reservations or no's? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thanks so much, members. Last one, HCR 172, titled Requesting the Department of Accounting and General Services, Department of Budget and Finance, and Department of Public Safety to testify on any legislation that would potentially increase overcrowding conditions at Hawaii's correctional facilities. Members, this comes to us from the Senate. As the nation discusses how much we invest as various communities into public safety and into criminal justice as a whole. Criminal justice isn't just the Department of Public Safety, it also includes police departments, the Sheriff's Division, it includes the judiciary, it includes the county and the way they do ordinances, it includes the prosecutors and the public defenders. Criminal justice is not just the Department of Public Safety, it is across a variety of different governmental agencies. So if we're going to do criminal justice reform, we should be looking at how much money we spend. So it is Vice Chair's recommendation to pass as is. Any members, any questions?
Members voting on HCR 172, Chair's recommendation is pass as is. Noting all members present, any reservations or no's? McDermott, no. Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you so much, members, and thank you for allowing me to run the hearing. Gaveling out.